Hello, hello, hello. Do you know what you feel? How's everyone? Happy Tuesday. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Will you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Will you be my neighbor? What's his name? Oh gosh, what was Mr. Rogers' real name? Was it Fred Rogers? What are you laughing at, Randy? That's gonna be beeping all night. I made the grave mistake of starting my dishwasher like 10 minutes ago, and I'm like, man, now it's gonna be going live. It's gonna be going off during my live. So now it's over there beeping in the background because I stopped it. So anyway, Abraham Rogers. It was not Abraham Rogers. Where you getting Abraham from? That sounds so. That sounds so biblical. Abraham Rogers. I thought his name was Fred Rogers. Cello, wine, whiskey, and water. Abraham Rogers. How hilarious! How hilarious! You was just trying to help. Yeah, with that. So, yes, yes, yes. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Did I do this right?
You did it phenomenally. You look great. You look so ethereal. You look so surreal that even your errors are correct. Even a little.
Honey, I think you know what it is? It's this.
Well, cheers to
Oh
that.
wait, and that.
And of course, look, and not in any particular order, right?
Right,
Well, cheers.
exactly.
Well, cheers to Tuesday.
Yeah, we gotta cheers.
There you go. Cheers to Tuesday.
Yes, thank you.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm
Good.
good. Good.
Good
It's
deal.
been good.
You said it's been what?
Can y'all close the door? I'm sorry. I got your friend. Your friends are here. I have April and Sam here.
Oh.
Can y'all close the door?
Look, she can't close the door because she's actually commenting in the section right now.
Right. Her hands are busy. And I gotta turn volume. Okay, there we go.
Ah. Well,
Now we're for real.
there you go. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for asking me, Darius. I know this is gonna be so fun. I cannot wait.
It can only be us. But when I was thinking about, when I wanted to do this Teach Me How To, I had a whole list of people that I'm like, oh, this person can talk about this and this person can talk about that. And I maybe even share that actual image with you. But when I had you down, I said, oh, Tracy can talk about jewelry. But I'm like, no, she also does this, she does this, she does this, she does this,
Yeah.
and she does all those other things as well. So tonight you'll teach us how to be a multi-hyphenate, how to work and how to, do side hustles, all those different things. So
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? When you we were talking back and forth via text, and I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Like, I don't know if I want to teach somebody how to make an earring. Like, why are we
mm-hmm,
doing that? And
mm-hmm,
then I want to teach somebody how to start a jewelry business because you can YouTube that for the rest of
mm-hmm,
your life, right?
mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, maybe like creative side hustle or something. Like, I don't know. And when you said multi hyphenate, I was like, oh, like me doing all my things actually has a name.
And I must give credit where it's due. That's not my term. I think I heard that in an interview that Amanda Seals was doing, and I forget who she was
Yeah, it's
talking with, but she was more so talking about like how people describe people as like Jack or Jills of all trades. But she's like,
yes,
I'm really not just one thing. I'm really all of these things, and I'm all these things concurrently. Like this is who I am concurrently, consistently. I'm dot 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 dot, and maybe
right.
if I want to add something else to it, I'll add something else to it. So, before we get started, I'll just say that I have a list of the hyphenates that I think you are, and then you you can then, let us know a little bit more about you, and then to sort of jumpstart, really tell us who you are to yourself. But what I have down here, I have that Tracy Bill is a human, a friend, a healer, a creator, divine, a visionary, an artist, amazing, and lastly, absolutely adorable.
Oh my God. What's so wait, that was that's awesome. Like I can't believe you just said all those things to me. That's really beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I'll share this with this about this conversation, but I'll share with everyone else. I think I know you a little bit over a year, and
Yeah.
I know it was close to a year because this time around last year I was preparing to do the hosting at Old Major for my open mic, my All Souls Allowed, and I'll never forget the day before it was me, you, and April at brunch. I forget where we went first, but we ended up leaving and going to another restaurant. But I remember having a conversation in both
Yeah.
places, and I was really like so. I don't know if it was nervous, but I was so anxious. I was so antsy. I was out of rhythm, and
I remember
I
that.
never maybe it was either you or April, and someone said, "Well, are you ready? Are you prepared for tomorrow?" And I'm like, I'm really not, and I remember you just opened up and just, you didn't just not necessarily provide a solution, but you really related to me and said, as a creative, I know how this is. I've been there before myself. I don't remember the exact words, but I just remember the relatability of it all, person to person, human to human, but then also creative to creator, or creative to
Mhm.
creative. I just remember that. And that just really stood out to me. So I thank you then, but I'll thank you now. So that's why you're all those things to me, because you're just a great person. But I just remember that day specifically and how you really calmed me down and really said, you know what? It'll be okay. It really will be okay. And the next day it was
It
wonderful.
was it
It
was so okay.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was.
so okay. It was but let me tell you something about that moment because I remember being like admiring you in a sense for even just trying to do this thing. I'm like, here's this dude, first of all, that doesn't even live in Baltimore. He lives like south, I forget where you were at the time, but you're like south of Baltimore, right? You're trying to do this thing in Baltimore that needs to bring a crowd at a bar because you like to write and poetry and you had like happened to wrote a book. And I'm just like, he's just not even not even seriously questioning himself in the idea of or whether you should do it or not. You just said, I'm going to do it. I'm nervous to do it. I don't know if I'm doing it right. But you already had in your mind that you were going to do it,
Mm,
right? It wasn't about like there was, I felt like there could be all these reasons as to why you couldn't have, but that's not where you were. You were just sort of like, how do I pull this off, right?
mm,
And so I was so impressed with that, especially being the person that I am because I am a thinker and I think things into the ground. I go, I do. I like, I think things like over and over. You know what I mean? Like this is just,
mm-hmm,
I think it's like I don't know, it's a gift and a curse. You know what I mean? I think of like all the angles, all the things that can go wrong and whatever. But you were just like, I'm doing this thing. It's gonna happen. I'm nervous about it, but and I'm like, oh, like he's just doing it. Like that's kind of dope. You know what I mean? Like, so I was impressed,
Thank
honestly,
you.
and that's probably why I even took the time to say whatever it was that I said to you that you remember, or like at least impacted you enough. That's probably why that I even took the time to say such things because
Mhm.
I've at least learned at this point that not everybody is, worthy of what you have to say because sometimes they're just there yet,
They're not
right?
all. They're not all worthy of your words. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Not, yeah, because I get when I'm trying to give somebody advice or I'm trying to tell you something, it's coming from a very real and deep place. I'm not just trying to tell you what to do. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? I'm telling you like what I get and what I feel, or perhaps like my own experience of where I've been, right? So that's real shit. Like,
That is that. Look, cheers to all of that. How about that? How about another cheers to that?
let's
All right. Okay. So that was a great introduction, and I'm literally tearing up over here for real. But just tell us a little bit more about who Tracy Bill is.
Oh Lord. Okay, so I'm really happy that the topic for this is multi hyphenate, and the fact that I get to celebrate that at this time period, like this space and this time where we are, like in this day and age, because just growing up as a person who wanted to do multiple things, I grew up in an era where you were taught to do one thing, right? It's about doing one thing. Don't scatter yourself. But anyway, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Anyway, so who I am, I'm Tracy Beal. I'm an artist first and foremost. I'm a jewelry designer or a jewelry artist. I sing with a band called Conjure Collective. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't gotten together recently, but I miss them dearly. I also make wall art out of copper. I guess that's what you would call a day job, but it's also something that I love. I work for a museum here in Baltimore. I do programming for a museum. So I always get confused on how to describe this, but essentially, like I create or help to create events that help people interpret exhibitions at museums. What else do I do besides, like you said, like being a human, being a daughter, being a girlfriend? I think those are like the highlights. I mean, in my former life, I was a makeup artist. That was my first career.
Well,
And
like I saw that in your last interview that you did. I'm like, who knew that Tracy was a makeup artist? And I think you toured and traveled with someone. Was that it?
yeah,
Or you were in
so
Germany or somewhere?
I didn't try. So Germany was like, okay, so let's back up. So my first career was makeup artistry, like retail makeup. People thought I was crazy because I was in college, in very good college, like an art school here in Maryland, Maryland Institute College of Art. But my job at the time was like retail makeup. You know what I'm saying? So people were like, "Why are you doing this? Like you're going to like top art college, but somehow you're like working at a department store selling makeup." But I loved it. I thought it was. I just thought it was like super dope, and I didn't think that people understood the art that went behind makeup. Now I think it's, but yeah, so that sort of evolved itself for me into a freelance career in doing makeup, and I ended up doing a lot of editorial work. I did a little bit of film, but I ended up not liking it as much. But yeah, a lot of editorial work during that time. That's when jewelry sort of came into my life. We're talking like 20-ish years ago, you know? And then you were talking about me traveling. So after a certain point, I moved to Philadelphia, and that's where I really started like my freelance career in makeup started to really take off. And so I was doing a lot of work with like modeling agencies and different things like that. And I was making jewelry at the same time. And then I ended up moving back here to Baltimore. And then I got this gig, basically making jewelry at concert tours, which was really random. Like I was actually paid to travel the country and make jewelry on the spot for people at concert tours for shows like with The Roots and John Legend and LL Cool J and Floetry and like all these people. So I spent a couple years doing that, and that was God.
And
That was God.
And and I was going to ask, as you talk about all these things that you've done and the experience that you've had, talking about it being God, and when I hear you say that was God, sometimes I feel that we don't plan things. Sometimes we just fall into them. Do you think some of those things were things that you just sort of fell into or that arrived?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, so I feel like if we're talking about being multi-hyphenate and we're talking about doing like multiple things, right? I think the first thing that you need to have is a certain level of faith. Whatever your religion is, that's none of my business. Whatever you believe. But I do feel as though you need to believe in something larger than yourself. Because if you think that you have control over everything, you got a problem. You're going to fail. So you need to believe in something that is larger than yourself. Because if you feel as though everything that's happening around you has to come from you, it just makes things that much more difficult, right? So there are times when I feel like I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the next step is going to be. I might not even understand who I am in this particular moment. But because I believe in something that's higher and bigger and larger than myself,
Mm,
I know that, okay, I have the knowledge to know, like, okay, this is part of a path that I can't see. It's not meant for me to see the end, right? So the way that I ended up getting that gig working on these concert tours was literally the life that I had previously fell apart, like fell to pieces. I
mm,
was living in Philadelphia, getting freelance gigs, doing all the stuff, doing all the things. I'm traveling different places. I'm making money, jewelry selling. I'm like, I'm living the life that a 20-some-year-old person would like love to freaking live. I make my rent and all my bills in 2 weeks, and then I can just be a butterfly the rest of the time.
mm,
Slowly, my life began to just fall apart and crumble. I lost where I lived. I lost my relationship. I lost friends. I lost gigs and jobs. I lost myself. I ended up
mm.
having to move back to Baltimore with my tail between my legs because I left Baltimore because I was working at the Met counter. I was a Met girl back in the 90s, right? And we were slick, we were everything. So I
You
had
were
to
a
come back
you were
to
a
Baltimore.
pioneer. If you were a Mac girl in the '90s, I think they called those pioneers. I'm not sure when Mac came out, but
Oh, because we did the most. Some of those girls I still talk to. But I had to come back to Baltimore with my tail between my legs because I left like I'm about to move to Philly. I'm gonna move to this bigger city. Telling people like I was getting like freelance gigs in New York. I was working for
hmm
MTV and Lifetime and like all these places. But I had to like come back to Baltimore with my tail between my legs, barely any money at all, no job,
mm,
no nothing. I moved back in with my parents. Like I was so done. Like I was
mm,
so like what I would consider the bottom of myself, right?
mm,
And so the one thing I knew how to do, I knew how to sell. I knew how to do like retail makeup. I always knew how to sell. I know how to converse with people and do that whole thing. So I had to go back to the same store. I was working at Nordstrom's in Towson. I had to go back there and ask for a job.
mm,
I felt this big, right?
mm,
So I had to go back, ask for a job. They hired me. It was quite interesting. You know, if things were different, of course, you know, because I had left for a time, but I was making money. I was doing what it was that I needed to do. But let me tell you this. So the woman that ended up connecting me with this gig, I met her at the Mac counter in Towson that second time around.
mm-hmm.
That was how I met her. And I remember being behind the counter cleaning or doing something because it was like the end of the night. And I saw this chick wearing a shirt that was a branded shirt for this company that a friend of mine worked for, and I knew what that company did. And something just told me that I needed to talk to that chick.
Mm,
Like somebody else was helping her, somebody else was picking out lipstick or doing whatever. She was there buying makeup for the tour.
mm-hmm.
One of the ladies of the tour. She was there buying makeup for the tour, and I saw her there. She wasn't my client, but I just sort of like squeezed my way over to even. I think I just said hi or like, "Are you okay?" Like I
Mm-hmm.
answered like I didn't know if somebody was home. And I was like, "Hi, are you okay?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And she asked me, she was like, "I love your necklace. Who made it?" And I was like, "Oh, I make these." And she was like, "Oh, the company that I work for is looking for a jewelry artist to work on concert tours."
You're like, that's me. Yeah.
And I was like, "What the fuck?" And so I knew what the company was about. I had met
Mm-hmm.
people that worked for this company. I knew they produced like amazing events and did all this really dope stuff. And so when she told me that, I was just like, "Oh, okay, so I'm your girl."
Mm-hmm.
And she literally like walked me through the entire process of getting this gig. Like I was drawing pictures of jewelry that I could make at different concerts that like
Mm-hmm.
with their product lines they were trying to sell and doing all this stuff. And then about four months later, I was living on a tour bus and traveling around the country.
and
Like
and and then you really started a whole new life. That's really, it's not like you
I
started a
did.
whole new life. And anyone, people that really know, I don't know if my friend Kat is in here, but she knows that I love alliteration. But when I hear that, it's almost like you really had to be reduced for you to rise again, and to really rise, and to rise in a totally different way and to really almost rise into your purpose or something that that you really enjoy and look at where you are now and you have a beautiful logo, you've got a wonderful website, you're creating all this jewelry, you're doing all these other things, but it you stated, you had to really, I want you
Yeah,
know, humble yourself or be humble. Let me say that. Really be humbled and then start over again. And so sometimes you have to start over again to really get to really where you really are. And I think that's what the world right now is inviting us to do is to say, just pause for a second, pause
yeah,
and then just, pause and not even plot, but just pause and just sit with it. And then what will be. And whether what will be for the world, you can still be who you are. And I think that the world is inviting us to do that. And I hope that people are listening to that to say, you know what, let me just sit still for a minute to see what this next moment looks like for me as everyone around. And the world is saying, what's going on right now? So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay, so that was a good introduction. So, because you just talked about jewelry right there, and I'll go with that, and I'll pull out my very own. Again, I feel like I'm doing one of those mukbangs right now.
Yes,
My
you gotta
own,
get the hand
yeah,
behind.
my own Tracy Bill jewelry box that I absolutely love, and it's so beautiful. And then it reads here: jewelry isn't necessary, so why should it make sense? And and it's engraved, in it there. And so it comes with these lovely business cards here, this lovely pouch, and I'll pull out my piece. And I know
Hey,
that
Belinda.
when you talked about it, I'm gonna really, do it now. And also, I was born in August, so I think it's the peridot, however you pronounce it, but it's more of a green, and so this really
Beautiful,
fits
beautiful.
with mine. And so when I saw this on your website, I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to get this piece." And I know the story behind it, but I want you to share with people. But the reason why I was so attracted to this piece, number one, because it's just aesthetically beautiful. But I think I shared with you when I read the words, it made so much sense for me where I was right then because I had, quit my job, that I've been at for, 14 years,
Yeah.
moved back to my little hometown, living with my mom, in this new job that, I like and I'm still learning about. But, then COVID hit and then I lose a very close friend and
Mm,
that was a lot to deal with. But what the description of this piece, or I think this piece is titled Sensuality as a part of your Geist collection, but a part of the word says that it reminds us to feel and to take risk that ignite our passions.
yeah.
And I said to myself, oh my gosh, that's exactly where I am right now in life. Um, Again, didn't even know that those words were associated with the piece, but it just made it make sense to me. And I'll go back to what you were saying earlier about, all the different things that you've done. Really, I think a part of what you do, it really inspires feelings. I mean, you're almost like a mood maker. I mean, whether it's jewelry or, your singing or what you do for your job, you really invite people to get into an actual mood. And so the
Yeah.
words for that made me get into a mood. And so I'm grateful that I have my very own Tracy Bill jewelry. So I
And
feel
it
like
looks good
like
on
I'm on
you.
QVC or something. Like, see here, people, it's lovely.
We talked about getting you on QVC. They don't know
Yes.
what they're missing.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm ready for it. But talk first. You talked about how you got into jewelry. But talk about how you got into no, let me actually stay on jewelry for a second. I know you have a few. I know that there's the Geist collection. Talk about some of your other collections. Maybe tell us the story behind this collection here.
So yeah, so there's Zeit and there's Geist. And so it's actually a single German word. Zeitgeist means spirit of the times. And so it's a two-part collection. And so there's one part like that you're wearing now, which is about the spirit. And so that piece that you have on, which is also this is part of that family as well, the one that I
Mm.
have on here. They're made of shattered windshield glass, like from my actual car. Like somebody broke into my car, shattered the windshield. 24 karat gold leaf, and they're encased in brass. And so essentially what the spirit collection is about is literally like sometimes life breaks us,
Mm,
right? Life
mm,
will shatter you, it will break you into a million pieces. And so then what you are charged to do is sort of, you got to go and you got to scoop yourself up,
mm,
right? You got to go pick up your little broken pieces and try to put yourself together the best way you can. You're not going to be the same. You're never going to be the same. You're not supposed to be,
mm,
right? You just got to sort of like love the new shape of the spirit that you have. And that can be such a strange and awkward thing
mm,
to do when you're in the moment, right? Like you don't even get to notice how beautiful you are.
mm-hmm,
And then other people see it, but
mm,
you're like, you're just going through this like weird space of being a weeble, you know what I mean? Because it's authentic. So that's the spirits part of the collection. And then there's the other one, the other part, which is which represents the times as far as, oh wait, let me do my thing up here. Which represents the times. It's hard to see it here, but essentially this I designed to be sort of like a mythical wheel of time,
mm-hmm,
right? So if the times that we're living in, or we're living in when I designed these, I just want to preface the fact that I started creating this in 2019. So if the times that we're living in had a fingerprint, this is what I feel like the fingerprint would look like. And
mm,
so my philosophy around this at the moment was that I felt like the world was a bit chaotic, not knowing what we would be through right now, like not knowing what was going to go through. But it still felt chaotic to me. I felt like time was speeding up. I felt like things were going really fast. I felt like this technological age was just like doing the most, right? And so people were starting to speak up, like folks that didn't have a voice now have a voice. Big institutions were crumbling. People
mm-hmm,
were being taken down by movements like the Me Too movement and all other kinds of stuff. So our society and the way we understood it at the time was beginning to sort of like shake and change. There was like this bubbling up
mm,
change, right? So if we're talking about if this is like a representation of chaos, if that's an idea of like chaos, to me, the opposite of chaos is truth. Like it could be peace if you didn't think about it deep, or if I shouldn't say didn't think about it deep enough. That's judgmental. But anyway, it could be peace. But I thought about it like a little bit deeper. And so the opposite of chaos to me is truth, right? Because it's something that's trying to like come up from under the surface.
mm,
Whatever surface has been put down. It's because something is being dismantled because something else needs to come up.
mm,
And so I created this to sort of represent that truth. And like, it's both of these, they're talisman pieces. Like they're meant to be worn as a sense of a reminder. They're
mm,
meant to be worn for protection. So
mm,
you wear this to like protect your spirit, to protect the true self that you are. It's like your staff in the ground. It's a reminder of what your truth is because we go out in this world and people will try to convince you of all kinds of shit. They'll try to tell you that you're crazy. They try to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. They try to tell you that you don't deserve $10,000 more. All
mm,
this stuff. So if you don't know, what's up, you could believe it. So like I make these things as a reminder for yourself of who you are. Because sometimes we need to be reminded of who we are, right? Because
mm,
things that we need to be reminded of who we are beyond my name is Tracy and I perform this function in the world.
mm-hmm,
Reminded of like seriously like why I am here,
mm-hmm.
or you know what I mean, like to give it's an expression of worth, you
Yeah.
know.
And you talked earlier about, that I wrote a book and I did. And one of the, it's poetry, but they're also, I mean, any word one says to me is poetry. I mean, I can hear blah,
Yes.
blah, black sheep, but I'm like, it's a poem. But, to your point, what you just said, I have a poem in there and I made it into a shirt. And it says to remind yourself of yourself. And
Yeah.
sometimes you forget when you fall down, when you're reduced, when you're humbled, you've got to remind yourself of yourself. And really, it's almost like that Saturday Night Live character with Stuart Smiley, like, I'm beautiful and gosh darn it, people love me. I mean, you really have to remind yourself of who you are and really rise
Yeah.
again. And again, that's why I say that it's, jewelry or art itself can do that. And to the point that you did this in 2019, that's why I called you a visionary, and really a healer, because, you never, I mean, no one could have predicted where we're in right now, but what I really heard
No
you
one.
say, yeah, no one, but you still have a feeling that, as you said, that
Yes.
something was trying to really emerge and to come out, that something new was being created. And I see my friend Randy's in here, so he'll, tell me this Bible verse. I tell people I don't know Bible verses, but I know, I kind of have a feeling of what the Bible is saying, but it's really saying, like, to become a new creature. And, really what I think you're saying was that sometimes you got to become a new creature. And, some of your pieces, especially with the shattered glasses, saying, hey, you're still the same thing. You can put yourself back together in a new way and really become a new creature. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, what actually keeps you going when it comes to, like, with jewelry, or how do you figure out what's next in terms of what you're going to create? Because it's not like, especially when it came to the windshield, that you really, what I heard is that you saw that and said, I'm going to turn this into this. So what's actually next for you in terms of jewelry?
So in terms of jewelry, I mean, the way that usually the way that I figure things out, I guess, is by like my own experience. Like
Mm,
I usually take, I guess, from my own life experience, and it's usually sort of from like the inside out, right? Or like my feelings around a particular subject
mm-hmm,
or a particular something that I'm going through. You know what I mean? So that's usually where my ideas kind of come from. Like as far as next, I've been sort of enamored with this idea of like molting and changing.
mm,
And so I think that's sort of like the road that I'm going down next.
mm-hmm,
Uh, I'm also extremely like spiritually driven, just like God and the spirit and that whole other like partition of life that sometimes we want to like agree that it's there or not agree that it's there. Like people have their own ideas. I'm very much a part of that sort of like spirit world, which means a great deal to me. And so that informs a lot of my work, you
mm-hmm,
know.
mm-hmm,
Um, yeah, that informs a lot of my work. In terms of like what keeps me going, I think I don't know. I feel everything that I create, whether it's like it's jewelry or music or whatever, like I feel like it chooses me.
mm.
You know what I
Ooh,
mean? So it's
mm,
like, and it goes back to that thing of like there being something larger than myself. So I mean, I can feel like I'm in the steering wheel if I'm at the steering wheel and the driver's
mm-hmm,
seat if I want to, or certain times I am because I can. Like we have free will, we can choose which way we want to go.
mm-hmm,
But I feel like a lot of things choose me. I tried to stop making jewelry at one point in my life. I remember I was like, I was breaking up with it. I was divorcing, right. I was divorcing jewelry. I was like,
so,
we're over, we're done. But I don't get to do it. Like it becomes
mm,
synonymous with who I am. It becomes like this whole thing, and even down to like music and singing. Like that was something I was scared to do for like a billion years. I was really afraid of doing that, and then I finally started to like let that part of me out.
mm,
It was so freeing, and it felt so great. And so there's like another one of those things that sort of like chooses us, or we
mm-hmm,
choose it,
mm-hmm,
chooses it. It's like a little bit of a partnership, you
mm-hmm.
know.
Now tell us how long have you been singing?
Not long. Let me see. 2 years.
Oh wow, really?
Let's say 3 years at the very most, but 2 or 3 years. And this is like okay for the world, but
Ah, okay.
I was like secretly undercover making beats on my computer and writing songs and doing all that stuff for probably a good like 10 or 15 years. But
Mm,
I was so shy about it.
mm,
I never really shared I didn't share it with other people that
okay.
much, or people that I really trusted. So it wasn't, yeah, like for a long time, like getting on stage and singing something was like a fantasy. You
So
know what
so
I
so we,
mean?
we can't go anywhere and search and find like home videos of little Tracy Bill, like, singing at talent shows.
No, there was no. When I was a little girl, I was all about acting and dancing. I did eight
Ah,
years of ballet and like all this acting and all this stuff. Like,
okay.
yeah, I wasn't really singing too much back then. No.
Okay. Now, you talked also about in terms of what you actually do for your profession. Tell us how you got into that world. I mean, because it's still art and creative, but yeah, how'd you actually end up in that world?
As far as being at a museum, this is my first museum experience. I've been producing events for quite a while. I
Hmm.
can't put a number to it. But I've been producing events for a long time. I started working with like an experiential marketing agency, and we would literally create, or like you said earlier, creating a mood. That
Hmm.
was sort of like our job, was to create an experience for people around a brand, whether it was, I don't know, bracelets or wine. We create a brand sort of mood, So I came from like a creative background in like event production. So I learned all this stuff about event production and producing events. And then I worked for a an independent news organization. So after that, I learned a lot about like television and news production and all this sort of stuff. And so now I'm at a museum, which is pretty awesome to be, essentially just creating these events and these experiences and activations around art, like around
Hmm.
the concepts of a particular exhibition.
Hmm.
So, I mean, one thing leads to the next thing that leads to the next, leads to the next thing. My words are in this class. So all of my L's are in key. One thing leads to the next thing,
And
which
then to the
leads to the
next thing.
well, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do, and it's also. I mean, it's got to also feel rewarding to be able to showcase other artists as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
it feels really good, and it's like an inside view in a sense to like this sort of like the business of art world in a way in which I haven't experienced it before,
Hmm.
right? Because I went to a I studied like fine arts. My degree is in general fine arts,
Hmm.
right? But I didn't work in the fine arts field, as an adult. So my experience with art was very much about making and cultivating to sell, right? So
Hmm.
it was on that like that marketing piece was always there. So on the fine arts end, working in the museum setting, it's very different. Not that fine artists don't want their work to sell because it does,
Hmm.
but it's a whole different thing,
Hmm.
right? So it's quite interesting. And then yeah, like creating these moments for artists,
Hmm.
creating these experiences for
Hmm.
artists, and even just sharing some of what I do with people that I know that may not already be into this thing, right? So they get to discover something new for themselves.
Hmm.
Or hiring folks that I know that are really talented people that might be under the radar, but I get to hire them to do
Mm.
things for people,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
that feels really dope. And then just learning, like we get these new exhibitions or these new artists come across my desk and different things and we have to create events around a specific exhibition, and I might not know much about it at all. A lot of times I don't know anything about it. So there's all this research and learning that I have to do to even be able to do my job correctly.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So there's something that you're
yeah.
learning as well. Yeah. And I gotta apologize. I probably need to apologize to all my guests from the past, but also coming up. When I introduced people, I said it'll be like 15 or 20 minutes. And my friend Kathy was like, "You do not talk for 15 or 20 minutes." So,
We can do that.
like minute 40. But I wasn't gonna let lead the next hyphen it. But I see there where Lady T Thomas 77 said that you're also a great photographer, so a phenomenal photographer. So talk about you in
Well, yeah.
photography. Yeah, talk about that.
So photography is like my love.
Hmm.
Photography is just something that I do because I can't help it,
Hmm.
right? And so I don't necessarily always like to get paid for photography. It's not like I'm going to go out and like photograph a bit. I have photographed events before, but that's not my jam, right? But I don't know. Like I see things in it. Like we all see things in a certain kind of way. It's not like, oh, Tracy Beall's eyes are different than everybody else's. But I see things in a certain sort of way sometimes. And sometimes I want to capture that, right?
Hmm.
So I love to take photos, and it's like this. It I don't know. It's almost like a fun sort of game that I play. You know what I
Mm,
mean? It feels really good to sort of like capture these moments, and especially when it comes out the way that I want it to come out.
mm,
And I own a DSLR, like a camera with lens and all that sort of stuff. But I tell you, it's something about taking pictures with a cell phone. I
mm-hmm,
think perhaps it's the limitations that come around it, and also the immediacy of having it right here, right?
mm-hmm,
There is something about taking pictures with a cell phone and like trying to get like the best pictures you can with a
mm-hmm,
phone.
mm-hmm,
But also too, when you're taking pictures of people and situations, a phone is a little bit more invited than a big DSLR, right? A phone is a little bit more, or people are like way more ready for it now. But yeah, it's just sort of like I muse around with it, like it's
mm,
like a muse of mine. I love taking photos and capturing moments and sort of telling a story through imagery.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it just feels good. So
It's
like I don't base that on any kind of outcome. I just try to do stuff. At any given moment, I probably have about 2,000 photos in my phone. Like I'm ridiculous. I don't know how. I gotta figure out. I need you to keep this series going and have somebody come on here and teach us how to organize
okay on
our
your pictures.
photos in our
And you
digital
know,
life.
and speaking of phones, my phone paused for a second. I was like, I was at 52%. Now I'm at 20, below 20. I'm like, how did this happen? But no, you're right in terms of the lenses being a little bit more intrusive. But
Yeah,
I'm a photographer as well. But I my old phone, I woke up one morning and it did not turn on, and I literally lost 9,000 pictures because I didn't back them up. So, but yeah. So anyway, so let's ask you some questions. How do
yeah.
you in this time keep the inspiration going as a creative? Since this whole thing started, I've completely shut down.
Wait, so how do I do what?
How
I
do
can't
you in
see.
this how do you in this time keep the inspiration going as a creative? And then the person says, since this whole thing started, I have completely shut down. So really, how do you get the motivation to really keep going?
Because that's part of it.
Mm.
Like so, this is I'm so far away.
No, you're
This is
fine. It's I'm standing in
she.
my piece.
Yeah, okay, so that's part of it. I felt like that when we first shut down. I was just like, people were like, "Oh my God, you must be making so much jewelry because you got all this free time." No, bitch, I'm sad. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. I'm, no, I'm not, because I create like I don't just like make stuff like a little machine in China. Like things come from outside of me or come from inside of me. So I can't just like bust it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's something that I literally create. So I need a moment to sort of get it together. The world was already going at 1,000 miles per hour before we shut down, which is probably part of the reason why we shut down to begin with. So that was sort of like my respite in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So part of keeping the inspiration was feeling like maybe I can't right now.
Mm.
Maybe I can't right now. And then understanding that it's okay that I can't right now.
Mm.
It's okay that I don't want to right now. Because that's where like self-care comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this whole shutdown and quarantine and all of that has made me realize how much I am like that piece of self-care that I was missing,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm always going, I'm always rocking, I'm always doing something. And while that's a beautiful and wonderful thing, and I think that's something that is just great about the human that I am, I also need to take a moment, you know what I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
just sort of pour back into Tracy. And so, yeah, like, so if you're feeling all the way shut down, that's where you are right now. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have a spark in the middle of the night or whenever your musing time is, and you have some ideas, but you don't have the wherewithal to do it. Write that shit down just go buy a book.
Mm-hmm.
Buy a book, write all your things down, draw all your pictures, do all your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's enough for right now. If you're feeling like I can't, because the part of you that feels like you can't is still the same part of you that does. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Ooh,
So
I felt
it's
that
just
one.
like,
Yeah, and and I'm sitting here thinking, like, I really didn't even have to lead with the questions, teach me how to, because you have been teaching us the whole time. Because really, a part of all this, especially when you are multi hyphenate, And really, we all are all these things. And, what I hear you say is that, or really all the things that you are, is to let people know that it's the whole you. We're not this and this. Well, we're not this. We're this and we don't have to, put them in different, compartments. We can, be all of them at once. So, and
Yeah.
Elroy Justin said, yeah, we actually needed this. And people are saying self-care. People are saying that's the word. I told you you were a healer. We might have to add, preacher or, deaconess, to this as well. So
I, I study some of those things,
there you
so I
go.
don't
So,
know.
so
Yeah.
as you've done all this, tell us like some actual lessons that you've learned along the way, or like what's been like maybe like one big lesson you've learned about what you do or about yourself. What have been some lessons?
I've learned, so the first thing I mentioned was just about like how faith is really important. So that's
Mm-hmm.
number one. I learned that having some kind of a vision is important, whether you can see the outcome of that vision or if it even seems feasible. It might not even seem feasible
Mm.
at the moment, and that's okay. But having some sort of vision, I've learned that the people that are around me and how important that is,
Mm.
like how important the folks that are around me, whether it's family, friends, potential partners in terms of business or otherwise, relationship, that is all extremely important,
Mm-hmm.
because you got to make sure that the folks that are around you are for you,
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Mm.
And that they're always just wanting you to be a better whoever it is that you are. So that's like super important to me. Um, that's like majorly important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then follow through.
Mm.
I think follow through is extremely important. So understanding that you're like, especially if you're a multi hyphenate person, right? There's never a shortage of ideas. You're always coming up with something. There's always the next thing. There's always 100 things that these scissors could be, right? I got like 1,000 ideas. Like that's never gonna stop.
It's this,
But
and it's this.
it's
Like
like
scissors,
it's
did
never
you
gonna
know all the things that you can be? Your
like there's all the things. There's all the things that you can do. So having a certain level of follow through on those things and trusting yourself to do that, and
mm.
also um, creating a balance between being a little bit impulsive and cautious.
Mm.
And I think number one, another number one up there with faith is probably just like remaining curious. You
Mm.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
I made a pact with myself a long time ago to just sort of remain curious. How does it work? What is it? Who is it? But anyway, okay. So
We're back. All of a sudden,
I
no,
made a really corny joke while you were gone. It was
no.
so corny.
Well, I hope that other people heard it because I'm just like, oh, my phone just stopped. What just happened? So, oh man. Well, I'm sorry, I missed it. All of a sudden, my phone said reconnected. I'm like, no. So, but I'm sure it was something. Do you want? I'm sure it was something wise. If you want to repeat it, I'm
I
sorry.
was being silly for a minute, and I was just talking about like remaining curious.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's really what it is. And so, that's why I wanted to do this, teach me how to, because, even though I've known you for a while, but I learned so much about, and I think that even when we've known someone for a very long time, we can still learn something new about them. We can learn something new about ourselves. We can do something different. We can be taught to do, new and different things. And so
yeah,
I think you're right. Curiosity is something that we should all chase. And because when you do that, you're always learning something. And that I feel that keeps me, that I think that keeps me a little bit feeling young and energetic. And it may be a random thought when you bring it up in conversation. Like, did you know that did you know that elephants do? And people are
yeah,
like, what? But that curiosity, I think, can really, you know, um, drive us and inspire us to really new things. And so, because you learn what other people are doing, or you learn something new about it. And like you said, scissors, you're not just, here to cut. You can think of something else and imagine it. You can imagine it yourself, in a totally
Yeah.
new and different way. So yeah, so this has been fun. Anything that you're working on next? I mean, whether it's jewelry or you talked about that earlier, but I know once the world opens back up and your group gets back together, I think I have all of my G's in here. So, but anything next that you're working on?
Um, well, I talked a little bit about the next collection and like some of the stuff I was working on there. I think right now I'm really just working on sort of like what does it look like to consolidate some of these things that I'm doing, and also just trying to be better about showing up online with my work.
Mm,
And when I say consolidate, it's like, how can music be a part of jewelry? How can
right.
my photography sort of live in this space and the storytelling thing that I like to do? And trying to meet like like other like jewelry designers and artists. Just trying to connect with people a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more. Um, Yeah, and like really working, like putting together like a body of work around this idea of like molting and so forth, and giving that time and space to breathe and seeing what that looks like and honoring my process, you know? So
Mm.
yeah.
So I can add so many other things to this, but I will end it with I think you're absolutely all the things that I listed earlier, but you're absolutely beautiful, and so I thank you for joining us tonight. And so I've learned so much. And um, sometimes you have an intent when you want to do something, but sometimes what you really need to get out of it is what you get out of it. So I thank you for giving me what I really needed out of this tonight. And so I selfishly thank you for that. And I thank, everyone else for joining tonight as well. So um, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, stay beautiful.
I love it. This is, and I love talking to you anyway. So
I
yeah.
can go on.
Yeah, it's real cute that other people are here. It's real cute. I love that they're here, but like talking to you is always just,
Yeah, and
it's
it's
great. I'm
weird.
great.
Yeah, and it's weird, because I can imagine people with so many other followers. I mean, and I like to do things like you said with photography. I like to do them just because I'm curious, and if someone can get a peek in, I'm certainly fine with that. I'm sort of a voyeur myself, so I don't mind someone else peeking in either. But I think that when you're able, I mean, I just love to connect with people, and I feel that
Yeah,
energy, from you, as well. And so, and I think that that's what we need to do as humans. And I hope that this time, even though there's so much stuff that's going on in the world, certainly in this country, I hope that we, just pause to really, and I know it'll take some time to get there, but really connect with each other or learn something new about someone that you might see every day, or you may not really
yeah,
know them. Like just sit and just talk with them. And I always say that for me, I think that strangers give the best advice. I love talking to
yes,
complete strangers because they're totally they don't know you, and so sometimes what they say is like, you know what, I needed to hear that complete person
yeah,
who I have no idea and doesn't know all the things that are going on in my life, but you just preached a word into my life. Thank you for that.
yeah.
So
You
yeah.
just, yeah.
So yeah. So I thank you, and so we'll do a cheers on the way out. So
Cheers.
cheers. So everyone go to, is it tracybillsjewelry.com?
It's TracyBeal.com. Yes,
TracyBill.com. So yeah, go to Tracy Bill, get your fabulous piece like I do right here. I think
thank
I'm gonna have to wear this the whole month of August for my birthday. It feels so fancy. I'm like, I don't know what to wear it with. I'm like,
Well, wait, when's your birthday?
August 25th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that down. All right, I got you.
There you go. Yeah, August 25th. So
It
um
feels fancy, but wear it anyway. It's okay to be a little fancy.
because guess what?
You can have a
Jewelry
moment of
isn't
fancy around your
necessary.
neck and keep it going.
Jewelry isn't necessary. So why does so why should it make sense? Okay. And really that's
Yeah,
also, I think that's also a lesson for life. So thank you for and teaching us to really, how to be all these things and really how to own all these things who we are. And sometimes when you fall
Yeah,
down, you will rise again. And that,
absolutely.
yeah, you'll rise. And really to just sit and just breathe with it and be with it. And, and peace, will be still. So thank you, Tracy Bill.
Thank you,
All right.
Darius.
Love you.
This is fabulous.
All right. Bye.
Bye.